My name is Smart Greg, and I want you to look at me real good. I'm 60 years old now, sitting in my office on the 47th floor of a building I own in downtown Chicago, looking out at a city that once looked down on me. I've got a net worth that crossed $1 billion 3 years ago, and it all started with a toilet brush, a bucket, and a dream that everybody told me was too small to matter. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and like this video now. Let's continue. Let me tell you something about small dreams. They're the only ones most people are brave enough to chase. And if you chase them smart enough, they become bigger than anyone ever imagined. I wasn't always Smart Greg. Back in 1985, when I was 21 years old, people just called me Greg, or sometimes they didn't call me anything at all. I was invisible. I dropped out of community college after one semester because my mama got sick and somebody had to pay the bills. My father had left when I was 7, and my 2 younger sisters needed to eat. So I did what a lot of young black men in Southside Chicago did. I looked for work, any work, and I found it in the places nobody else wanted to look. My first job was cleaning toilets at O'Hare Airport. $5.15 an hour, night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I remember my first night like it was yesterday. The supervisor, a white guy named Ron with a coffee stain on his shirt that looked permanent, handed me a mop, a bucket, and a bottle of industrial cleaner that could probably strip paint off a car. He said, "You get terminals 2 and 3. Every bathroom, every stall, every urinal, every sink. I want them spotless by morning." Then he walked away, and I stood there holding that mop like it was a life sentence. I'm not going to lie to you and say I loved it. I hated it. That first night, I cleaned up things I didn't know the human body could produce. I gagged. I almost quit. But then I thought about my mama in that hospital bed, about my sisters eating cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row, and I got back to work. What I didn't know then was that this job, this terrible, humiliating, back-breaking job, was going to teach me everything I needed to know about building an empire. See, most people who clean toilets are just trying to survive. They clock in, they do the work, they clock out, and they try to forget about it until the next shift. And I don't blame them. It's hard work, and the pay is terrible, and nobody respects you. But somewhere around my 3rd week, I started noticing things. I started paying attention. I noticed that some bathrooms got way more traffic than others. I noticed that certain times of night, the bathrooms were absolutely destroyed, and other times, they were barely used. I noticed which cleaning products worked better, which techniques got the job done faster, which tools lasted longer. I started keeping a little notebook in my pocket, writing things down. Ron thought I was crazy. He'd see me scribbling in my notebook during breaks and shake his head. "What are you doing, writing a novel about toilets?" he'd say. And the other cleaners would laugh. But I kept writing. I timed myself. I tracked supplies. I noted which stalls needed the most attention and which ones people avoided. I was building a database in my head, learning the science of something everyone else thought was just mindless labor. After 6 months, I was the fastest cleaner on the night shift. I could do terminals 2 and 3 in 4 hours when it took everyone else 6 or 7. Ron noticed. He pulled me aside one night and said, "Greg, you're doing good work. I'm putting you on terminals 1 through 4. More area, same pay, but it'll look good on your record." I thanked him, but inside I was calculating. More area, same pay? That's not a promotion. That's exploitation. But I took it anyway, because I was learning something more valuable than money. I was learning systems. By my first year anniversary, I'd figured out the entire operation. I knew how many paper towels each dispenser needed per shift. I knew which soap lasted longest. I knew the exact amount of cleaner needed for each surface. I knew the optimal route through the terminals to minimize walking time. I'd turned toilet cleaning into a science, and I was getting really good at it. But more importantly, I was starting to see the business behind the job. The company I worked for, Millennium Cleaning Services, had the contract for the entire airport. I started asking questions. How much did they charge the airport? How many cleaners did they employ? What were their profit margins? Most people thought I was being nosy, but I wasn't. I was doing market research. I learned that Millennium was charging the airport $87 an hour per cleaner, but paying us just over $5. Even accounting for equipment, supplies, insurance, and overhead, they were making serious money. And the service they provided, it was mediocre at best. That's when the idea hit me. I was 22 years old, lying in my bed in the tiny apartment I shared with my mama and sisters, staring at the ceiling with water stains that looked like a map of somewhere better. I thought, what if I could do this better? What if I could start my own cleaning company? Everyone I told thought I was insane. My mama, God rest her soul, she supported me, but I could see the worry in her eyes. My friends laughed. Greg, you can't compete with these big companies. You don't have money, you don't have connections, you're just a kid cleaning toilets. But I had something they didn't have. I had information. I had data. I had a system. And I had nothing to lose. I spent the next year preparing. I kept working at O'Hare, kept cleaning those toilets. But every free moment I had, I was studying. I went to the library and read books on business, on contracts, on marketing. I talked to everyone I could about cleaning services. I saved every penny I made. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. My sister thought I'd lost my mind. By the time I was 23, I had $4,200 saved up, and I was ready to take the biggest risk of my life. I started Smart Cleaning Solutions in 1988 with that $4,000, a used van I bought for $800, and a phone line installed in my mama's apartment. I didn't have an office. I didn't have employees. I didn't even have business cards at first. I made flyers at the library for 10 cents a copy. But I had something more important than all of that. I had a pitch that nobody else in the cleaning business had. I didn't just offer to clean. I offered to revolutionize how buildings thought about cleanliness. My first target wasn't the big corporate offices or the airports. I knew I couldn't compete there yet. Instead, I went after small medical clinics and dental offices. Why? Because they needed to be absolutely spotless for health regulations. But they were too small for the big cleaning companies to care about. They were getting terrible service at premium prices. I walked into every clinic I could find on the South Side, with my spiral notebook full of data and my homemade flyers, and I gave them a pitch that changed my life. I'd say, "Doctor, how much are you paying for cleaning services right now?" They'd tell me, and then I'd say, "What if I could clean better, provide you with weekly sanitation reports, use hospital-grade disinfectants, guarantee same-day responses to any issues, and charge you 20% less?" Most of them were skeptical, but I'd pull out my notebook. I'd show them the schedules I'd developed, the supply lists, the quality control checklists. I'd explain that I'd spent 3 years studying cleaning systems at one of the busiest airports in the world. I made cleaning sound like rocket science, because done right, it kind of is. My first client was Dr. Patricia Morrison, a black woman who ran a small family practice on 79th Street. She took a chance on me, and I made sure she never regretted it. I cleaned that clinic like it was the Mayo Clinic. I showed up in a clean uniform I'd bought at Goodwill and pressed myself. I brought my own supplies. I did everything I'd promised and more. After the first month, Dr. Morrison referred me to 2 of her friends. After the second month, she gave me a testimonial I used for years. She said, "Greg doesn't just clean, he cares." That became my unofficial motto. Within 6 months, I had 8 clients. Within a year, I had 23. I was working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. I'd clean offices all night, then spend the mornings doing sales calls, then the afternoons handling paperwork and ordering supplies. I was exhausted, but I was exhilarated. For the first time in my life, I was building something that was mine. Nobody could fire me. Nobody could tell me I wasn't good enough. The work spoke for itself. By my second year in business, I had too many clients for one person to handle. I needed to hire employees, and that terrified me. See, I'd built my reputation on being reliable, thorough, and excellent. How could I trust someone else to maintain those standards? I interviewed dozens of people, and most of them just wanted a paycheck. They didn't understand that cleaning wasn't just about making things look nice. It was about creating environments where people felt safe, comfortable, and valued. Then I met Marcus. He was a 40-year-old man who'd recently been laid off from a factory job. He came to the interview in clothes that were worn, but meticulously clean, and when I asked him why he wanted to clean offices, he said something I'll never forget. Because everybody deserves to work in a clean place, and I'm good with my hands. I hired him on the spot, and I trained him the way I wish someone had trained me. I didn't just hand him a mop and tell him to get to work. I taught him my systems. I explained why we did things a certain way. I showed him the notebook, the data, the science. And you know what? He got it. He understood that we weren't just cleaners. We were professionals. Marcus became my first team leader, and together we hired 6 more people. I looked for people who'd been overlooked, people who needed a chance, people who were willing to work hard and learn. I paid them more than the industry standard. Not a lot more, but enough that they knew I valued them. And I gave them something else nobody else in the cleaning industry was giving: respect. I put them in uniforms with the company logo. I provided training. I gave bonuses for excellent performance. I treated them like the professionals they were, and in return, they worked like champions. By 1992, 4 years after I started, Smart Cleaning Solutions had 47 employees and 93 clients. We were cleaning medical offices, dental clinics, small law firms, and retail spaces all over the South Side. I'd moved out of my mama's apartment and into a small office with an actual desk and a phone system. I had business cards that were professionally printed. I had a reputation for being the best in the business. But I was still small-time, and I knew it. The big money was in corporate contracts, in office buildings, in institutions. And to get there, I needed to think bigger. That's when I made the decision that a lot of people thought would ruin me. I bid on a contract to clean a 10-story office building in the Loop. This was way out of my league. The building had 200,000 square feet of space. It needed daily cleaning, weekend coverage, and specialized services I'd never provided before, like window washing and floor refinishing. The big companies were all bidding on it. Companies with 50 times my resources. My accountant told me I was crazy. Marcus told me we weren't ready. But I looked at that contract and I saw an opportunity. I spent 2 weeks preparing that bid. I toured the building 6 times, taking notes on every single detail. I calculated exactly how many staff hours it would take, how much supplies would cost, what equipment we'd need. I factored in training time, supervision costs, quality control measures. And then I did something audacious. I went to the building manager and I gave him a presentation. Not just a bid sheet with a price, but an actual presentation with charts and graphs and a detailed plan. I showed him how we'd clean his building better than anyone else, how we'd save him money in the long run through efficiency and quality that would reduce complaints and turnover. I sold him on a vision. We got the contract. We beat out companies 100 times our size because we offered something they didn't. We offered to care. That contract tripled our revenue overnight. It also nearly broke us. The first 3 months were hell. We had to hire 25 new people. We had to lease equipment. We had to develop new systems for a much larger operation. There were nights I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. Nights I couldn't sleep because I was worried about making payroll or meeting our standards. But we figured it out. Marcus and I practically lived in that building for the first 6 months, training staff, fixing problems, making sure every single detail was perfect. And it worked. The building manager was so impressed that he referred us to 3 other property managers. By the end of 1993, we had contracts for 4 major buildings in downtown Chicago. We'd gone from the South Side to the Loop, from small clinics to corporate America. I was 30 years old, and Smart Cleaning Solutions was generating $3 million a year in revenue. Now, let me pause here and tell you something important. A lot of people think becoming a billionaire is about one big break, one brilliant idea, one lucky moment. That's not true. It's about 1,000 small decisions, about recognizing patterns others miss, about being willing to evolve. By the mid-90s, I'd built a successful cleaning company, but I was still essentially trading time for money. If we wanted to grow bigger, we needed more staff, more equipment, more everything. The model was good, but it wasn't scalable to the level I was dreaming about. I started studying other industries. I read about McDonald's and how they'd franchised their way to global domination. I read about technology companies and how they'd built platforms instead of products. I read about real estate moguls and how they'd used leverage to build empires. And I started thinking, how do I apply these principles to cleaning? How do I turn what I know into something bigger than a local service company? The answer came from an unexpected place. One of our corporate clients, a mid-sized insurance company, asked if we could help them standardize their cleaning across all 12 of their regional offices. They wanted the same quality, the same protocols, the same reporting in every location. They were currently using different local cleaning companies in each city, and it was a nightmare to manage. I told them I'd think about it, but inside I was electric with excitement. This was it. This was the model. I spent 6 months developing what I called the Smart Cleaning System. It was everything I'd learned over the past decade, codified into a replicable framework. I created detailed training manuals. I developed standardized supply kits. I designed quality control checklists and reporting templates. I built a system where someone with minimal experience could be trained to clean at a professional level within 2 weeks. I turned institutional knowledge into a product. Then I did something that seemed insane to everyone around me. Instead of just using this system for our own company, I started licensing it to other cleaning companies. I reached out to small cleaning businesses in other cities, people like I'd been in 1988, hustling hard, but struggling to scale. I offered to train their staff, provide them with my systems, give them access to our supply chain relationships, and help them win larger contracts. In exchange, they'd pay me a licensing fee and a small percentage of revenue from contracts won using the smart cleaning system. The first few cleaning companies I approached thought it was a scam. Why would I help my competitors? But I wasn't creating competitors. I was creating a network. See, every cleaning company operated in a limited geographic area. We weren't really competing with each other. We were competing with the mediocrity of the industry as a whole. By raising everyone's standards, by creating a network of high-quality cleaning services across the country, we'd all benefit. And I'd benefit most of all because I'd own the system. By 1997, I had 37 cleaning companies in 19 states using the smart cleaning system. I was collecting licensing fees from all of them. I'd essentially invented franchising for the cleaning industry, except I was licensing methodology instead of a brand name. The revenue from licensing was exceeding the revenue from our actual cleaning operations. I was making money while I slept. That's when I understood the difference between working hard and working smart. I'd spent years working hard. Now I was working smart. But the real breakthrough came in 1999. One of my licensed operators, a woman named Susan Chen in San Francisco, called me with a problem. She'd just won a massive contract with a tech company that was expanding like crazy. They needed cleaning services in 17 cities within 6 months. Susan couldn't handle it alone, but she also didn't want to lose the contract. She asked if I could help coordinate other smart cleaning system operators to fulfill the contract. That phone call changed everything. I realized I could become a cleaning services aggregator. I could go after the national contracts, the huge corporations, the retail chains, the hotel groups, contracts that required service across multiple states. I could win these contracts and then distribute the work across my network of licensed operators. I'd essentially built a nationwide cleaning company without having to directly manage staff in every city. The business model was beautiful. Low overhead, high scalability, and the ability to compete with the biggest players in the industry. We landed that tech company contract, and it was just the beginning. Over the next 5 years, Smart Cleaning Solutions became the go-to provider for companies that needed consistent, high-quality cleaning services across multiple locations. We worked with retail chains, hotel groups, hospital systems, corporate office portfolios. By 2004, we had 312 licensed operators in 47 states. Our network was cleaning over 70 million square feet of space every single day. We were doing background checks, drug testing, and intensive training for every cleaner in our network. We had a national quality control system with mystery shoppers and real-time reporting. We'd professionalized an entire industry. The revenue was staggering. We were generating over $100 million a year, and our profit margins were incredible because our overhead was so low. I'd moved the company headquarters to a beautiful office building in downtown Chicago. We had a staff of 40 people managing the network, coordinating contracts, and continuously improving the system. I was 41 years old, and I was rich by any reasonable standard. But I still wasn't a billionaire, and I was starting to think about what came next. That's when I had a conversation with a private equity investor named David Rothstein. He'd been watching our company for years, and he came to me with a proposition. He said, "Greg, you've built something remarkable, but you're thinking too small. You could take this global. You could be in 100 countries. But to do that, you need capital, and you need expertise in international expansion." He offered to invest $50 million for a 20% stake in the company. A lot of entrepreneurs would have jumped at that deal, but I didn't. Not because it wasn't fair, but because I had a better idea. I told David I didn't need his money, but I did need his network. I proposed a different structure. I'd bring him on as an advisor and pay him well, but I'd keep full ownership of my company. Then I'd use his connections to start acquiring smaller cleaning companies instead of just licensing to them. See, I realized that licensing was good, but ownership was better. If I could buy up the best regional cleaning companies and integrate them into the smart cleaning system, I'd own the entire value chain. So that's what I did. Between 2005 and 2015, we acquired 83 cleaning companies across the United States and expanded into Canada, the UK, and Australia. Every acquisition was strategic. We bought companies with strong local reputations and great staff. Then we plugged them into our system and helped them grow. We were rolling up the industry, and our valuation was climbing exponentially. By 2015, Smart Cleaning Solutions was valued at $700 million. But the move that pushed me into the Billionaire Club was something nobody saw coming. In 2016, I noticed that corporate America was becoming obsessed with workplace wellness and hygiene, especially after a few high-profile disease outbreaks. Companies were willing to spend serious money on enhanced cleaning protocols, air quality monitoring, and sanitation certification. So we developed Smart Hygiene Solutions, a premium service that combined advanced cleaning with technology. We installed sensors that monitored air quality and surface cleanliness in real time. We used hospital-grade disinfection systems. We provided detailed analytics and compliance reporting. And we charged premium prices. The timing was perfect. When COVID-19 hit in 2020, we were already the leader in hygiene technology. While other cleaning companies scrambled to adapt, we already had the systems, the training, and the technology in place. Demand exploded. Companies were desperate for services that could keep their employees safe. We scaled faster than I ever imagined possible. By the end of 2020, we'd tripled our revenue. In 2021, we went public. The IPO valued Smart Cleaning Solutions at $4.2 billion. My 67% stake made me a billionaire at 57 years old. I'm 60 now, and I still can't quite believe it sometimes. I walk through O'Hare Airport occasionally, and I visit the bathrooms in Terminals 2 and 3 where it all started. They're cleaned by Smart Cleaning Solutions now, part of a contract we won in 2018. I stand there, in those same bathrooms where I used to work the night shift, and I remember that young man with a mop and a dream that seemed too small to matter. People ask me all the time what the secret is. How does a kid from a South Side with no connections and no money build a billion-dollar empire from cleaning toilets? And here's what I tell them. There is no secret. There's only seeing opportunity where others see shame. finding dignity in work that others dismiss, and being willing to learn from everything. I didn't succeed because I was special. I succeeded because I paid attention. I took work that nobody wanted to do, and I did it better than anyone else. Then I figured out how to teach others to do it. Then I built systems that could scale. Then I built a business that could transform an entire industry. But more than anything, I succeeded because I believed that every job matters. Every toilet I cleaned mattered. Every client I served mattered. Every employee I trained mattered. The world teaches us that some work is important and some work is beneath us, but that's a lie. All work is important if you bring excellence to it. All work can be the foundation of something greater if you're willing to see it that way. I still run Smart Cleaning Solutions, though I have a tremendous team that handles the day-to-day operations. These days, I spend a lot of my time on the Smart Foundation, which I established to help young people from underserved communities get training and opportunities in the service industry. We've helped launch over 3,000 small businesses in the past 5 years. Because if a kid from the South Side can turn toilet cleaning into a billion-dollar empire, imagine what a generation of young people could do if someone believed in them and gave them the tools. So if you're out there right now, doing work that people look down on, work that seems meaningless, work that feels like it's going nowhere, I want you to know something. You're standing where I stood. You're holding the same tools I held. The only difference between where you are and where I am is what you choose to do with this moment. Will you just survive it, or will you study it? Will you just endure it, or will you master it? Will you let the world tell you this work doesn't matter, or will you prove that excellence matters everywhere? The path from a mop bucket to $1 billion is longer than any story can capture. But it starts with a single decision. The decision to see possibility instead of limitation. To see opportunity instead of obstacles. To see dignity in every task. That's how you become a billionaire cleaning toilets in America. You stop cleaning toilets the way everyone else does, and you start building something that nobody else can see yet. Then you work until everyone else can see it too. My name is Smart Greg, and I'm living proof that there's no such thing as small work, only small vision. So dream bigger than your circumstances, work smarter than your competition, and never forget where you started. Because the skills you learn at the bottom are the same ones you'll need at the top. Now go build something nobody thinks is possible. I'll be watching.